Third POV. Arceus, damn me. All Might cursed as he laid in the couch in the teacher's lounge, coughing in his true skinny form. Halucha sat by on the armrest of the couch. I told you this would happen. Halucha spoke in his mind, shaking his head both in annoyance and fondness of All Might's predictableness. You not responding to a crime in progress despite the hundreds of other heroes around is as impossible as a Metapod not using Harden. I should have made a bet with Braviary about this. Yeah, I know. All Might said, rolling his eyes. I'm already beating myself up about this. I don't need you repeating it like a chattet. If any one of us is the chattet here, it's you, Mr. I Am Here. Halucha replied back. Alright, back to the Pokeball with you. All Might said, bringing out a Pokeball and returning Halucha in a beam of red light. All Might sighed and took out his phone again and dialed numbers before bringing the phone to his ear, waiting as it rang and rang. The number you dialed is out of service or has been temporarily disconnected. All Might's phone said finally. Please check the number and then try again. All Might sighed in defeat. I can't get in touch with 13 or Aizawa, Toshinori said to himself. Then again they are teaching. Unlike me, neglecting my duties as a teacher. Halucha was right. Such an rookie mistake. Maybe I should go there anyway and say some inspiring at the end. Yeah, get a good 10 minutes out of hero form. All Might groaned and strained before his baggy clothes stretched as he reassumed his hero form. Time to join my stud *GH*. All Might's dramatic words were cut short as he coughed up blood. The symbol of peace coughed and wiped his mouth of the blood. Hold your radisashes there, All Might. All Might flinched in surprise at the familiar voice, looking over to see the door slide open to reveal Nizu. Oh, hello, Nizu, sir. All Might greeted. I must say that your fur looks especially well-groomed and lustrous today, sir. Thank you, and the secret is keratin, Nizu revealed. But don't think charming words will be all it will take to get out the talk we need to have, All Might. Oh, and please don't bother straining yourself with your hero form. You don't have to worry about revealing your true form to anyone in here, since the teachers all know about this form of yours. Besides, that smoke coming off you doesn't look good. All Might sighed and debuffed, returning to his skinny form. Nizu walked up to him and showed him in tablet. Why, look at the news. It says that you resolved 3 incidents in under 1 hour, Nizu said. All Might flinched and lowered his head. Oh great, I can feel another lecture coming up. Nizu sighed and continued. The fault does belong to the ruffians that still cause trouble, even with you around. But as I'm sure you already been told by your Pokemon, that you don't have to react to every incident that you're here. His powers of analysis are truly astonishing. All Might thought as he nodded silently. If there's anyone I know that might be able to compete with him would be either Night Eye or young Midoriya. Well, maybe add young Yaoyorozu onto that list. But I haven't known her as well as Night Eye or young Midoriya. You haven't changed a bit throughout the years. Nizu continued as he took a seat across from All Might. Always proactive, always willing to save all those you can. But only now your heroism must be limited due to your injury. And I'm betting more so after you passed on One for All onto Midoriya. Yes, All Might agreed. Ever since I passed it on to young Midoriya, I've gotten slower, and it feels harder to maintain my hero form every time. Fortunate of me that I gave you this job. Otherwise people would be suspicious why you aren't in the limelight much anymore. Nizu replied. Well, that and the other purpose was to find a suitable successor for One for All. But you resolved that even before starting. But going back to your current state, I caution that you must stay in the teacher's lounge and rest a little while longer, and also to prioritize your students more. The other hero agencies across the city can handle the criminals just fine. Yeah, I know you're right, Nizu, sir. All Might agreed and rubbed his neck. I was actually going over to USJ to make an appearance now, if it would be okay with you. Even if you went right now, you would only have to come right back, so you might as well stay. Nizu replied as he poured some tea into a few cups. The other teachers can manage without you. Oh great. All Might groaned internally. It is a lecture. He only pours out tea like that if he's geared up for long-winded speech. I imagine that you believe that a lecture or speech of mine is coming up because I'm pouring out tea, Nizu said, still smiling unfazed. And that I haven't changed much as well in figuring out what you were thinking about. All Might's flinch and slightly frightened and surprised look was all the answer the hybrid Pokemon needed. I guess I must agree with that. Nizu chuckled amused, as he finished pouring out the third cup of tea. But actually this talk of ours isn't in fact a lecture. More of an explanation and revelation. All Might appeared confused, only to blink as he noticed the cups of tea. 3. One for me and Nizu, but what of the third? A knock on the door snapped All Might out of his thoughts. Ah, I see he's here. Come in, Nizu called out. The door opened to reveal Taisher Walk, a charming smile on his face. Hello All Might. I see that you are resting up after a good deal of heroics today, he said. Hello, Taisher. All Might greeted back, as he looked back subtly to Nizu's smiling face. Was Nizu expecting him to come in when it was just me and him? That would explain the third cup of tea. The symbol of peace thought before he got up and shook the man's hand. I suppose Nizu here already told you about my condition. Yes, among other things, Taisher said as he walked to the chair adjacent to Nizu's. Like the secret of your quirk. All Might's eyes widened in alarm, looking towards the principal of UA in agape shock. Relax, All Might, Nizu calmly said. Mr. Taisher here is an old friend of mine from before I was principal of UA. He in fact was part of the group that freed me from my captivity and experimentation, so I trust him wholeheartedly. All Might's eyes widened. Nizu doesn't often talk about his time as a lab rat, an attempted combination of multiple Pokemon species, or how he escaped. All Might thought as he looked at Taisher. I guess I now know some of what happened. While Nizu speaks the truth, I wish to state myself that I swear on my honor and word that One for All will be kept secret, Taisher said, bowing in respect. I see. All Might slowly nodded, feeling an overwhelming sense in finding Taisher's words true and hold fast. Well, if Nizu here trusts you so much, then I can't be so opposed to you knowing about One for All. And while I'm grateful that you told me of this development, why is it that Nizu told you about it? Because the quirk that has been passed down throughout the centuries and has passed down its inheritors' auras is the kind of power that me and the group me and Nizu belong to find interesting, Taisher explained. Group? All Might repeated, confused. Allow me to elaborate. Nizu jumped in. You see, the group of people that rescued me from my experimentation, the group that Taisher here belongs to, is a rather secret group that deals with the more mysterious supernatural side of the world, from Pokemon to the very power that has been likewise transferred with One for All. You're talking about Aura, aren't you? All Might asked, turning over to Taisher. You mean that you and your group know about the secrets of Aura? Not just know of it, we are masters and guardians of it, Taisher revealed with a smirk. All Might's eyes widened to the size of dinner plates. You mean that you are a dash? Yes, I am. Taisher nodded. And we have reason to believe that your successor, Izuku Midoriya, is likewise one of us. All Might was rendered speechless, eyes wide and mouth agape that Nizu feared it would dislocate. How do you know for sure? Gasped. I had my suspicions for a while now, mostly during orientation, during Class 1A's quirk assessment test by Aizawa. Nizu answered, pulling out a small disc and placing it on the table. The disc lit up and showed holographic footage of Izuku's turn at the ball toss, from his outburst to Aizawa to his powerful throw. While at first glance, I assumed it was merely just the work of One for All, as I'm sure you believe as well, upon closer inspection revealed something else. A press of a button on Nizu's phone had the disc display Izuku's blue and later red eyes, along with a slight blue glow around Izuku's finger that spread throughout that ball. As All Might stared at the image, his narrowed, inspecting eyes grew wide in realization. At that point, Nizu contacted me to confirm his suspicions, Taisher said. And with the rather fortuitous open position of Pokemon teacher, I accepted. Our suspicions, however, became more and more concrete in the next 2 days. Mizu continued, pressing another button to show Izuku's battle training exercise against Bakugo, his Pokemon battle against Todoroki, and a series of charts and data. At the end of his match with Mr. Bakugo, the same event occurred. The screen showed Deku's Washington Smash, showing Izuku kicking Ida's Lucario and Bakuga's Kalava onto the explosive teen, but upon slow motion, All Might noticed once more the blue glow around Deku's leg. Later during the day, during his recovery, scanners that I outfitted to track traces of aura revealed a spike in aura around Mr. Midoriya, both in his bed and during the end of the battle exercise. Mizu said as he showed the data and a camera view of All Might and facing Class 1A, with a now different view as it showed a silhouette of Midoriya covered in blue energy looking at All Might, who looked back at his direction. I thought I was seeing things when that happened. All Might revealed as he scratched his chin. Or that I was seeing one of the vestiges of One for All. But now it makes sense, especially why it felt like young Midoriya. Additionally, I sensed young Midoriya during his aura walk and he with me. Taisher jumped into the conversation. A rare feat to occur. But couldn't this all be just One for All's doing? All Might asked. The quirk gets stronger as it's passed on. So what if this is some evolution or mutation of One for All that Midoriya can access that I couldn't? That was a suspicion of ours that we had, I will admit. Taisher replied. But after yesterday's class with me, those suspicions were proven unfounded. The screen on time showed Izuku's battle with Todoroki, most especially the final fight between Combusken and Darmanitan. At the beginning of our class, he sensed my own aura and the aura of his classmates, Tenya Ida's, Lucario, feats only those of our kind can do. And during the conclusion of his battle with Todoroki, Izuku somehow accessed and activated his Combusken's ability through his aura. What? All Might asked, surprised. I doubt that he knows he did it himself. Taisher continued. But that kind of feat is something that no ordinary person can do. I looked into young Midoriya's aura to make sure, and while I could sense the aura of your predecessors inside him, the one that activated his Combusken's ability was his own aura. A feat that only experts like myself can do, and he did it subconsciously. What does this mean? All Might asked. It means that young Midoriya is a chosen, Taisher said. And one far more powerful and potent than I have ever seen. Izuku stared in horror and with gritted teeth in fear at the increasing group of villains that came out of the purple, swirling portal. The villains ranged far and wide in shape, size, and appearances, ranging from guys in armor and various gears to absurd appearances that Izuku almost mistook them for Pokemon. Speaking of which, they also had a varied assortment of Pokemon with them as well, with many of them ranging from dark and poison types like Mighty Inas and Weezings, to even fire and normal types like Markargo and Miltanks. Izuku's gaze narrowed to the most intimidating of the villains. Izuku quickly realized that the swirling mist they went through was an actual person, based of the two pure yellow eyes that appeared. Is it a warp quirk that can teleport people? Izuku thought. His gaze shifted to the three right next to the swirling mist villain, the ones that made his skin crawl the most. For being a Pokemon often known for destruction and brutality, the Hydreigon was the least intimidating out of the other two. It was a three-headed draconic Pokemon, its hands as mouths with a popped-up black collar of fur behind them, the black fur covering most of its upper body up to his long neck to another collar around his neck, the underside of the collar fuchsia in color. His two arm heads were similar dark blue heads with pure black eyes and toothless mouths. While its main head was more intimidating, more defined, its pitch black eyes had fuchsia-colored pupils. Its lower half was mostly dark blue and round body with two wide lines of striped fuchsia. Its legs were feetless and atrophied, and its tail had the same wide, striped fuchsia line running down it with a black tuft at the end. On its back were 6 black, thin wings that made it look like a fallen angel of sorts. The one by the Pokemon side was a tall, skinny, pale young man with messy bluish-gray hair and wearing skinny black pants and a plain, long-sleeved black shirt. An assortment of white hands covered that man's upper body, 3 covering each arm, 1 on each shoulder and on his sides, 2 clasped around his neck with those 2 having red tubes come out their backs to connect with one that was placed behind his head. His face was covered by one last hand, yet Izuku could see a glimpse of the same ruby-red eyes that were filled with nothing but hate and destruction. He was the one outside of UA yesterday, Izuku thought. Could he have been the one to destroy the gate and let the media in? Despite the hand-covered villain's terrifying presence, the one that truly made Izuku shiver was the large one. Well, he wasn't sure whether to call the thing before him a man or a Pokemon, but the creature had dark purplish-black skin, red scars all over its body, its large clawed hands looking like it could crush his head with nothing but a squeeze. It wore only a pair of yellow pants that made Izuku think it was a human. However, its face would say otherwise. It was a hideous pointed face with a beak with razor-sharp teeth for a mouth and nose. Its brain was exposed on the top of its head, its eyes practically plastered onto the sides of the brain. Looking at the creature made Izuku feel nauseous. Not just nauseous in that it looked frightening, but something about the creature made Izuku feel revolted, like the creature's very existence was a sin against nature. His head pounded as he stared at the monster. Why does it feel so wrong? Izuku mentally asked himself. Izuku broke his gaze away to see Pikachu beside him on edge. Every fur on its body practically stood on and his cheeks already twitching. Compelled by a force he couldn't describe, either protection or fear, Izuku brought out Pikachu's Pokeball from his suit's pockets and returned the Pokemon with a red beam. Why Izuku? Pikachu cried out mentally in his head as he was returned. The hell are you doing? Get me out of here. Not right now, Izuku mentally replied. I don't want the villains to see you out. Whatever is going to happen right now, I have a feeling that we are going to need the element of surprise on our side in case things take a turn for the worse. Ugh, fine. Pikachu groaned out. But the second I'm needed, I'm popping out of this death cage and giving you a piece of my mind. Deciding not to talk back on how the Pokemon was giving him a piece of his mind by talking mentally to him, Izuku just turned his attention back to the group, who were too busy staring at the villains to notice him returning Pikachu. The only real heroes I see here are 13 and Eraserhead, the Dark Mist villain said in a deep, echoing voice. Perplexing. According to the UA schedule we retrieved, All Might should be here as well. Aizawa's eyes narrowed underneath his goggles. So you scumbags were responsible for the break-in yesterday and used the press as a cover, Aizawa said. I was right, Izuku thought as he looked at the hand-covered man. I did see him back then. He must have been the one to destroy the defenses. But what's his quirk? Power quirk. Disintegration. Matter shifting. Where is he? The hand-covered man growled out. I went through the trouble of bringing along so many of my friends here to meet him. They all wanted All Might, the symbol of peace. So much time spent gathering up party members, and the main boss can't be bothered to show himself. He threw his arms up in the air in mock frustration, before lowering them and looking at the two heroes and students. Maybe if we kill a few students, he'll come out to play? Aizawa took clear anger to that. His scarf practically floating up, making the insomniac teacher look like he was levitating them. Wait, so these guys are real villains? Kirishima questioned. Nah, no way. How could they have gotten into a UA facility this secure? Yeah, Momo said. 13, why aren't the alarms going off? That's a good question. 13 replied as she looked up to the lights of the USJ. It could be the alarms have been disabled. Then they must have a villain down there with a quirk that's masking their presence, Ida said. Perhaps a Pokemon even. Is it the entire campus under attack or is it just here? Todoroki stepped up and asked. What do you mean? Serena asked. Think about. Todoroki replied. They chose to enter a facility that's separate from the main campus at a time when a class was being taught, with likely a villain or Pokemon down there that's disabled the alarms. They may be fools for trespassing here, but they clearly thought this out with a clear goal in mind. But what could it be? The students grew more unnerved, before Aizawa walked towards 13 and said, 13, get the students out and alert the main campus. Actually, if they have an ability that can block the sensors here, then they could be jamming our regular communications as well. Kaminari, see if you can use your quirk to contact the main campus. Yes, sir. Kaminari said as he clasped a hand onto the antenna earplug on the side of his head. Wait, Mr. Aizawa, are you going down there to fight them yourself? Izuku questioned. You can't. There are too many of them for you to take on by yourself, villains and Pokemon. The villains you could cancel their quirks, but you can't erase the Pokemon's moves. Plus, your combat style is suited more with stealth and one-on-one fights. You'll be overwhelmed on your own. Aizawa shifted his head to gaze at Izuku through his peripherals. You can't be a pro if you only got one trick, Aizawa replied. Izuku blinked in surprise. Besides, Aizawa said as he dug into his pockets and dug out 2 dusk balls. Who says I'm alone? He tossed his pokeballs into the air, and as they enlarged and opened up, through the white light popped out 2 Pokemon. The first was a floating sarcophagus with 4 shadowy arms coming out of it, red eyes poking out of the top of its body under a plain yellow face and sharp teeth under its eyes in a grin. A Kofagrigus. The other was a squid-like Pokemon, its main body dark purple with 6 yellow lights on its front and back and a yellow stripe wrapping around its front and back, all covered up by a transparent mantle, 2 fins sticking out the sides of its bottom like feet, 2 long tentacles poked out sides, the top dark pink, and the bottom part white, several purple and blue underside. Tentacles stuck out its top wavering, and its face was 2 narrowed yellow eyes with purple slits and a dark pink beak. Lamar. The students stared in awe at the new Pokemon. Momo and Todoroki brought out their Pokédexes and pointed them at the Pokemon. Momo pointing it at Malamar and Todoroki at Kofagrigus. Momo's Pokédex read Malamar, the overturning Pokemon, and the evolved form of Inkay. It lures prey close with its hypnotic motions, then wraps its tentacles around it before finishing it off with digestive fluids. Todoroki's Pokédex entry on Kofagrigus read, Kofagrigus, the coffin Pokemon, and the evolved form of Yamask. It has been said that they swallow those who get too close and turn them into mummies. They like to eat gold nuggets. I'll leave the students' care up to you, 13. Aizawa said. Yeah, 13 said. But at the very least, I'll leave one of my Pokemon with you. She dug into her pack and pulled out a great ball before tossing it out. Come on out, Gur. The great ball opened, and with a flash of white came out a 3-foot-tall alien-looking Pokemon. The floating Pokemon's appearance encompassed an oblong head, depressions on both sides of its head, black marking on its large forehead and 2 green, connecting eyes with black pupils. Its body was brown with a light brown collar around its short neck, 2 light brown orbs running down its body, and ending in a rim with 2 short brown legs sticking out. Its arms were thin at first before expanding into large stubs, flashing red, yellow, and green orbs for fingers. Mina quickly brought her Pokédex and scanned it. Beheem, the cerebral Pokemon, and the evolved form of Elgium. Apparently, it communicates by flashing its 3 fingers, but those patterns haven't been decoded. If this wasn't a terrifying life and death situation right now, I would be totally geeking out over this alien Pokemon, Mina mumbled. Also, Gur. It's the nickname of her Beheem, Uraraka clarified. Aizawa replied in a nod towards 13 before jumping down and running towards the villains, Malamar, Kofagrigus, and the Beheem known as Gur in tow. Shooting squad, take aim. A villain with gun-like fingers yelled as he leveled them up towards the hero. Beside him rushed a woman with wavering gray hair, a large man in a green bodysuit and horned gas mask, a Britannian Slowbro, a Garbodor, and a Dragalge. Didn't our intel say it was just going to be 13 and All Might? Who's this guy? The woman asked. Don't recognize him. The large gas mask-looking guy replied. But if he thinks he can take us all down easy, he's dead meat. As they took aim, Aizawa's eyes glowed red under the goggles. The villains stood still as nothing fired from their respective appendages, much to their confusion. The Pokemon, however, were unaffected and fired Shell Sidearm, Sludge, and Sludge Bomb at Eraser. Their efforts were in vain as Beheem raised its flashing hands towards the projectiles, freezing them in place with Psychic, before tossing them back at the villainous Pokemon. My quirk! / where are my bullets? The villains whined before they were wrapped up Eraser's scarf, swung through the air and finally slammed into each other, knocking them. Gur threw the psychic-held attacks and fired them back at the enemy Pokemon, clouding their vision. Malamar's eyes glowed blue as Garbodor was psychically slammed into Dragalge, before Gur slammed into Garbodor with Zen Headbutt, sandwiching the Poison Slash Dragon type into the ground under Garbodor's weight and Gur's psychic attack. Kofagrigus turned to the Britannian Slowbro and lashed out its shadowy hands as they morphed into claws and slammed them into the psychic/poison type. The villains around them looked stunned before a villain shouted out, "Idiots! That's Eraserhead, an underground hero. He can cancel your quirk just by looking at you." Cancellation? A four-armed, rocky villain questioned before rushing towards Aizawa. "Bet you can't cancel erase the quirk of a heteromorphic type like me, can you?" "Yeah, you're right." Aizawa snarked back as he ducked and dodged his attacks easily before punching the villain's face, sending him flying. "But a villain like you." Eraser tossed his scarf towards the flying villain, wrapping it around his leg. "Is only dangerous if you can reach me." "Good thing." Eraser suddenly ducked the villain's attack from behind, twisting his body and stunning the foe with a kick to the face, sending him stumbling onto two other villains. "I've taken measures to make sure that never happens." Eraser swung his scarf and slammed the villain onto the three villains. "Now, which one of you bastards is next?" Aizawa taunted as he took a stance, his long, floating hair falling down. A Houndoom rushed at Kofagrigus with Fire Fong from behind, while a milk tank rolled with Rollout onto its front. Kofagrigus vanished away, Houndoom's eyes widening as it was slammed into by Milk Tank's Rollout attack. Kofagrigus reappeared behind a Dusclops, slammed its hands onto its back with Phantom Force. Gur teleported away from multiple villains and Pokemon's attacks before firing multiple Psybeams at their backs. A group of Pokemon and villains rushed Malamar. The overturning Pokemon in response stared at them with glowing blue eyes, sending out blue waves of hypnosis that froze the Pokemon in their tracks. They fell down one by one, snoring as comical snot bubbles form on their noses. Malamar turned towards a few villain running towards it and flashed its yellow lights on its body at them, causing them all to freeze and suddenly, upon Malamar's chirps, started attacking one another. The hand-covered villain looks over at the pro, easily holding his own against the villains. "There he goes trying to intimidate us," he says. "He's strong, and since he's hiding behind those goggles, you can't tell whose quirk he's erasing. He's making it hard for us to work together or rely on each other's powers." He looks over at the underground heroes assisting Pokemon. Plus, his Pokemon aren't easy either. His Kofagrigus and that Behemoth are vanishing and striking us from behind and afar with their shadow hands or their psychic abilities. And that Malamar is either hypnotizing Pokemon to sleep and attacking or hypnotizing us to turn on each other. He watched Eraserhead slam his feet into a female villain's face, and later swing another villain onto at him to strike. "How annoying!" the villain growled out as he scratched the side of his neck. The worst thing about dealing with pros is when they live up to all their hype. Izuku looked back before snapping back to the front with the rest. "No, now's not the time to gawk and analyze Aizawa," he mumbled to himself. "We have to get out of here. Hurry, everyone." He and the rest of the students ran towards the exit with 13. The warp villain narrowed his eyes as Eraser turned away from him to another villain, and then towards the escaping students. As he vanished, a little rock with a gloomy carved face started hopping away from the villains. Before the class could reach halfway towards the entrance, a dark portal appeared in front of them, stopping them all in their tracks. "There is no escape," the warp villain announced ominously, as the rest of his shadowy body poured out the portal. "Damn it!" Eraser cursed. I blinked and turned away for a split second, and the guy, who seemed like the most trouble, got away. Eraser tried to rush back towards the group, only to be halted by the villains and Pokemon surrounding him. "Back with the students," the warp villain said. "It's a pleasure to meet you. We are the League of Villains. I know it's impolite, but we decided to invite ourselves into this haven of justice to say hello." 13 stood in between the villain and the students. "And besides, isn't this a fitting place for All Might?" the symbol of peace and Yue's pride and joy, to take his last breath? Izuku's eyes widened in alarm. All Might, Izuku thought. It's All Might thereafter. I believe he was supposed to be here today, and yet I see no sign of him. The warp villain continued. There must have been some sort of change in plans, was there? 13 didn't reply. Subtly lowering her hand was one of her glove's fingertips opened up. No matter. In the end, it doesn't matter. I still have a role to play. Just before 13 could raise her hand, her eyes widened as Bakugo and Kirishima charged the villain. Kirishima, Bakugo. Wait, Izuku yelled. Don't tell me what to do, Deku. Bakugo roared as he unleashed a large explosion on where the dark mist villain was. The dust cleared up to reveal Bakugo and a hardened-up Kirishima on guard. Did you really think we were just going to stand around and let you guys tear this place to shreds? Kirishima questioned the seemingly exploded villain. You live up to your school's reputation. The two were taken back by the villain's voice. The dust settled and revealed the villain unfazed. His smoking body parting to reveal a metal brace below his yellow, narrowed eyes. But you should be more careful, children. Otherwise, someone might get hurt. Get out of the way right now, you two. 13 yelled at Kirishima and Bakugo. I'll scatter you across this facility for you to meet my comrades. The warp villain yelled as his body grew and surrounded around the group. And your deaths. Crap. Kirishima yelled as he and Bakugo were covered completely by the dark mist. What is this? Ida quickly rushed over towards Uraraka and Sato next to him, grabbed them, and sped out with his engine quirk. Shoji jumped onto Siro and Mina and covered them with his large body. What's happening? Momo yelled as she, Jairu, and Kaminari too were covered. Izuku! Serena screamed as she rushed towards Izuku before being completely covered. Serena! Izuku yelled before the mist started swallowing him, and he felt a strong tugging sensation pull at him. Crap! Ida! Take charge and get help! Midoriya! Izuku heard Ida yell before everything became dark. Izuku thrashed and spun in the swirling darkness before he suddenly started falling. Izuku opened his eyes to reveal the rapidly approaching lake. The green-haired teen screamed as he fell into the water. Quickly, Izuku shook off his confusion and surprise, looking around the water around him. Water, Izuku thought as he looked around. Is this the shipwreck zone at the rightmost part of the facility? Then that means this guy has a warping quirk. Izuku, are you fine? Eevee's voice yelled in his mind. Yeah, I'm fine. Izuku began swimming upwards to the surface. So their goal is to kill All Might. Izuku mentally recounted. Good thing he's not in class right now. For once his recklessness paid off. Pikachu said. How is trapped in a large dome with villains, no All Might, warped wherever we are, and only 2 teachers to help against an army of goons paid off? Combuskin questioned. Okay, I don't know whether it was good he was here or not, but we can't worry about that now. Izuku replied. We have to get out of here and reach the others. Izuku quickly noticed something swimming around him, and turned to see another villain swimming towards him. What the heck? Izuku mentally screamed. First catch of the day. The villain said as he swam rapidly towards Midoriya. Izuku whirled behind to see a Sharpedo heading towards him from behind, a Tentacruel from his right side, and another villain from his left. I'm surrounded, Izuku mentally yelled. Izuku, his Pokemon yelled. Nothing personal, kid. The villain to his front yelled as he opened his mouth, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. But you gotta die. Just before Izuku could activate One for All, Azui slammed into the villain's side with her legs. Azui! Izuku exclaimed. Midoriya! Azui yelled. To his left, he saw Azui's Politoed slammed into the villain's backside. Behind him, before the Sharpedo could get close, Bryon appeared and blasted Sharpedo away with disarming voice. Bryon too, Izuku examined. Then that means dash. To his right, Tentacruel was right on him before the Pokemon was suddenly blasted away by a push of water, Serena appearing from below him. Serena! Izuku yelled mentally. Serena wrapped her arms around Izuku, Bryon latching onto them both, and she nodded towards Azui, who quickly wrapped her tongue around the three, and sprung from the sharp-toothed villain and ascended quickly to the surface, Politoed swimming close behind. They reached the surface, right next to a ship, where Azui settled Izuku, Serena, and Bryon onto the deck of the ship with her tongue. Izuku coughed as Azui and Politoed climbed up the ship. Thanks, Azui, Serena. Izuku thanked the two. You guys saved me back there. I told you to call me Tsu. Tsu reminded him for the umpteenth time. No problem, Izu. Serena replied. What kind of best friend would I be if I let you become Pokechow? You alright, boss? Pikachu asked. I'm fine, guys. Izuku replied. This is turning out to be a pretty bad day of class. Azui stated the obvious. Actually, it's been a bad day of class every day, hasn't it, Izu? Serena asked. First you get hounded by Aizawa, then you nearly die by Bakugu, and now this. Yeah, the universe just loves making my life living hell, doesn't it? Izuku sighed. Agreed. /same. / obviously. His Pokemon all said, much to Izuku's embarrassment. Well, I would say that yesterday wasn't too bad for you, Shui pointed out. Unless that mess from the break-in and nearly getting hit by a moonblast does it for you. Izuku frowned. The break-in, he said. Speaking of, that reminds me of what the warp villain and Aizawa said. The villains knew our whole schedule and who would be here. Yeah, Serena said as she rinsed out her hair. They must have broken in yesterday during all that commotion with the press. Could they have stolen some files from the school to know their plans? Possibly, Izuku replied. The teachers were all busy trying to keep the press out, so they probably wouldn't notice the villains, especially one that could teleport. And the alarms were already going off because of the press, so the warp guy could have gone through with ease without triggering any alarms himself. Chu added. They knew we would be here today and knew the perfect time to attack, just like Todoroki said. Izuku finished their train of thought. But if they are here to try and kill All Might, they won't win, right? Serena said. He's All Might after all, nothing can kill him. Well, think about it. Azui retorted. They wouldn't have bothered planning this out so much if they didn't have a way to kill him. Izuku's eye widened in slight horror. That's true. Serena frowned, obviously nervous and a bit skeptical. Either way, whether they can kill him or not, I think we should focus right now trying to keep ourselves alive and get back to the others wherever they are. Right. Shui nodded. Izu, you wouldn't know where we ended up, right? Serena asked. I bet you have this place analyzed the second you saw it all, right? Izuku was snapped out of his thoughts. Oh why yeah. Well, the shipwreck zone was on the right middle of the facility, between the fire zone and that rain zone. Izuku replied. So that means that dash. Ribbit. Azui croaked in alarm. Izuku stopped mid-sentence and looked to where Azui was looking, eyes widening in alarm too. Crap, he muttered. You little shits. The same villain Azui attacked yelled as near them on the water. Surrounding the boat were a series of villains and Pokemon, all mostly water-type, from Tentacruels to Huntales to Cloysters. Oh great, more villains! Serena exclaimed. They've surrounded us. As Azui and Serena looked around at the villains surrounding them, Izuku was in his thoughts. Why? Why are they here to kill All Might? Izuku pondered. Well, it's kind of obvious, boss. Pikachu replied. It's because he's All Might's symbol of peace. Bad guys shit themselves when they see him. Why wouldn't they want to get rid of him? That makes sense. Combusken joined in. With All Might gone, it would probably make a lot of people panic and more criminals to come out of the shadows. Nice deduction skills there, Detective Pikachu. Ha, I like that. Detective Pikachu. Pikachu repeated. Now that sounds like $1 million idea for a game or movie. Before you start rambling how to market yourself, can we get back to why the villains want All Might dead? V proposed. Actually, EV, it doesn't matter why. Izuku replied, memories of his time with All Might, all the special moments he had with him, inspiring him, training him. No matter the reason, I have to put a stop to it and face this evil. Head on. We have to stop them, Izuku said, bringing back the two girls' attention. Whatever it is that they are trying to do, we have to stop them. To save All Might, let's be heroes. Meanwhile, around the facility, the students faced the villains surrounding them, unknowingly following their class rep's decision. In the landslide zone, villains and their Pokemon were frozen and defeated by Todoroki and his Ninetales. Aren't you ashamed to lose to us? Todoroki questioned them. For Acreus's sake, you're adults. Put up a real fight. In the collapse zone, Bakugu, Kirishima, Kalava, and Quilladin fought villains in an abandoned building. Momo, Jairu, Kaminari, and their Pokemon faced off against villains in the mountain zone. Ojiro faced villains in the fire zone, while in the squall zone were Tokoyami and Koda. Eraser clashed against villains, while the hand-covered villain and the creature watched. After finishing scratching his cheek, the villain started to walk towards the hero. Meanwhile, by the entrance, Shoji, do you get them? Ida asked. Where is everyone? The student in question's tips of his arms morphed and shifted into eyes and ears and stretched out towards multiple angles. They've been scattered across the facility, but our classmates are still here, Shoji replied. The rest of the group of students that remained by the entrance with 13, which included Uraraka, Mina, Shiro, Sato, and the already mentioned Shoji and Ida, sighed in relief. So do you know where they are specifically? Uraraka asked. Like Deku, and Yamamo. The last name she quickly added in a blush at slip-up and Shoji blank stare. I can tell the number of them in a certain place, but it will take time to figure out who's who. Shoji replied to the pink-cheeked girl before staring in front of him. Time which we may not have the luxury. The group stared back at the large, misty form of the warp villain that stood between them and the doors to the entrance. What do we do? Zero asked. That guy's not affected by physical attacks and can freaking teleport stuff. Even if we try to hit him, we would just pass through him and be likely teleported somewhere else. Ida gritted his teeth in frustration, remembering Midoriya's last words before he was likely teleported away. Come on, Tenya. Ida mentally scolded himself. Midoriya and Yaoyorozu are not here, and Midoriya trusted you to take charge. So what would Midoriya do here? What would I do? Chief Officer Ida. Ida's thoughts were cut off by 13th's voice. The space hero dug into her pack subtly and pulled out a Pokeball. I have a job for you. Run to the school and inform them of what's going on. Ida was taken back by 13th's request. What? He whispered. The alarms are not sounding off and our phones and radios aren't working either. 13 explained. This power seems too concentrated or powerful for a single Pokemon to do for so long. Eraserhead is also canceling quirks left and right, but the situation hasn't changed and we are still sealed off from the outside world. If a villain's quirk is to blame, then they have hidden themselves somewhere here. Impossible to hunt down quickly. The same goes if it's a group of Pokemon. We don't have the time or luxury to find them. The fastest option would be for you to run over there and call for help than for us to find the signal disruptor. Why, yes, I understand that, B, but it would be disgraceful for me to leave you all behind. Ida yelled in protest. Go emergency exit. Sato said as he and Shiro stepped up and took a stance towards the warp villain. We can handle ourselves. There are plenty of alarms outside. That's why they are keeping us trapped inside, right? Right. Shiro jumped in. You get outside and they won't follow. Blow through this stupid mist and get some help. Use your quirk to save others. 13 ordered. Be a real hero. Ida saw as Shoji stepped up and joined Sato and Shiro by 13's side against the villain. We can help you out too, Ida. Ida turned to see Mina and Uraraka beside him as Uraraka continued. Just like we did at the cafeteria. And I can melt through those doors with my acid and Pokemon. Mina joined in, whispering that part out. But I need to get there quickly without that guy noticing. I can help with that. Uraraka brought out one of her pokeballs, before turning towards Ida again. Please, Chief Officer, do it. Ida was taken back once more at the words of his classmates, remembering back towards the entrance exam. How he ran away from the zero-pointer and ran away from Uraraka and Hagakure, who were in need of saving. How Midoriya ran towards them and saved them, while he ran away like a coward. No, he thought. This time I won't be running away to leave them. His engines popped out from his calves and took a running stance. This time, I'll be running to bring help and save them. Just like a hero. Just like my brother. Admirable. The warp villain said as he witnessed and heard most of them. But even if this is your only option, are you all so foolish to strategize in front of your enemy? As he yelled those last words, he lashed his misty form out towards the group. Heard what we were planning or not? It won't matter when I'm done with you. 13 raised her finger towards the approaching villain. The tip of her glove opened. As the mist approached, the mist started to get sucked into 13's finger by a powerful suction. Black hole! 13 yelled as she sucked up the villain into her finger. As the students prepared themselves and 13 sucked the warp villain with her quirk, they were unaware of the small face-carved stone hopping up the stairs. Hee hee hee. The stone giggled menacingly as it continued hopping towards the unsuspecting group, back at the shipwreck zone. So, it seems it was rather fortuitous for us to fight water-based villains in a lake, isn't it? Izuku pondered Serena's question as they stared the group of villains surrounding the boat. Yet after minutes flew by, nothing happened and the villains and their Pokemon stood, or rather floated, where they were. You're right, Serena, Izuku said. Those villains have a clear advantage in the water, and all their Pokemon are water types, making fighting them down there difficult. The only explanation for why all of them are so well equipped for a watery location is that they must have known what was inside the USJ before they warped in, Shui said. Other thing that they could have picked up from the files they stole at UA yesterday, Serena said. I wouldn't be surprised if there were villains with specific quirks that gave them advantages in the other zones. Yeah, but there's something that doesn't make sense to me, Izuku said. Something that doesn't add up. Which is? Serena asked. It's us, Izuku said as he stared at Serena and Azui. They sent the three of you us here, Serena, and Tsu. Better. Ribbit. Tsu replied. But why is that so confusing, Midoriya? It means that the villains don't know what are our quirks. Midoriya answered. Or our Pokemon. Ribbit. Azui croaked in realization. You have a point. Azui looked over to the fire zone to their right. If they knew about my quirk, then they would have sent me over to that fire zone instead of a place full of water. Yeah, Serena nodded as she got the point. Same with me. If they knew what my quirk was too, then they would have never sent me to a place full of water that I could control. And both me and Tsu's Pokemon are water types, making them greater fighters in the water. They planned to separate us because they didn't know what our powers or Pokemon were, Izuku explained. They thought by separating us to places where they would have the advantage, they could overwhelm and overpower us. That could be why they haven't climbed into the boat either. Izuku gestured to the villains as they stayed in the water. They don't know what our quirks or Pokemon are, so they are playing it safe. For all they know, we and our Pokemon can be superpower and easily beat them. But the only problem with that is that they will also not underestimate us. Izuku looked back to the girls. Does that make sense? He was met by the blank, wide eyes of the girls, along with Serena's Bryon and Azui's Politoed. After a few moments of silence, Izuku stuttered out. Did I go too fast or something? Nope, Serena said, breaking into a fond smile and shaking her head. Just kind of thought I would get used to you analyzing things to a terrifying degree. Yeah, Ribbit, Shui said. You are rather cool looking when you do that. And a little hot. Izuku broke into a blushing, stuttering mess. Serena likewise blushing and staring at Tsu in shocked jealousy. As they quickly calmed down, Azui asked, Can I also ask something? If it's not something so forward like before. Serena replied, glaring jealousy at the frog girl while Izuku blushed lightly again. Why is it so weird that they sent you here, Midoriya? Azui asked, taking Serena and Izuku by surprise. You said that it was weird how they sent all of us here, and that's how they don't know our quirks or Pokemon. Why is you being here weird? Is there some part of your quirk that's dangerous for them in the water? No, it's not me actually that's bad for them, Izuku replied. It's actually Pikachu. Pikachu? Serena questioned. Moi? Pikachu questioned in his mind. Yeah, Izuku answered. Pikachu is an electric type, and we are in middle of a body of water. Oh, Pikachu can electrocute them and knock them all out, Serena exclaimed, in a whispered tone as to not alert the villains. Yeah, I can, Pikachu exclaimed mentally. Send me out, boss, and watch me turn all their asses into barbecue. Yeah, but the only problem with that plan is that even if I send Pikachu out and thunderbolt them all, the electricity could end up harming us too, Izuku explained, imagining a cartoonish image of Pikachu electrocuting the villains and Pokemon in the water. If Pikachu were to go and electrocute them all, the electricity could end up harming the ship too, or us, as the electricity could end up shocking us as well. The cartoonish image changed to the boat exploding from the electricity, a comical red X over it, and the three of them, 5 including Politoed and Bryon, being instead electrocuted like the villains, another red X over that scenario. What's even worse is that even if we aren't harmed by the electricity, something like that would surely affect or alert other villains near the area and come for us. Okay, boss, don't send me out to barbecue their asses, Pikachu exclaimed with just as much bravado, much to Eevee and Combusken's size. Alright, so what do you think we should do, Izu? Serena asked. You are the class Republic, Azui said. We'll follow your lead. Izuku nodded and thought for a moment and said, Alright, first let's talk about what are quirks and Pokemon, Izuku said. Izu, you know full well of my quirk and Pokemon, Serena replied. Just humor me, Izuku retorted. Just to help me think of a plan. Alright, Serena said. I'll go first. My quirk is called Hydro. It allows me to manipulate water molecules of anything near me. With Izu's help and guidance, I can even manipulate the water in ice and transform it back into water for me to control, like during my battle training exercise against Todoroki. However, I need a lot of concentration to control it, especially with greater volumes, or I might lose control and release the water. Should sound really useful in this lake. Azui stated the obvious again. Yeah, but I also have a limit to how much I can lift or control, Serena clarified. I haven't really measured how much I can lift, but I don't think that a whole lake is within my quirk's weight limit. Maybe a few dozen tons. I've only controlled as much as I need for things like water whips, to ride on or capture people. Still really useful, Shui said. And your Pokemon are your Bryon, Milotic, and Piplup, right? Yeah, Serena said as she petted her Bryon, much to the pop star Pokemon enjoyment. Bryon's moves mostly include sound-based ones to complement Liquid Voice, like Disarming Voice and Round, but her other moves include Aqua Jet for mobility and speed and Bubble Beam for long-range offense. Milotic's my most powerful Pokemon with moves like Hydro Pump, Hyper Beam, Dragon Pulse, and Ice Beam. We could have Milotic easily compete with a lot of their Pokemon. And my last one is Piplup. She's my first Pokemon with the most experience, though she is more of a hit-and-slide fighter with attacks like Bubble Beam, Peck, Ice Beam, and Water Sport. What about yours, Tsu? My Pokemon include Politoed here. Azui gestured to the Pokemon beside her. But I also got my Palpitoad and Krogunk. Politoed's my partner Pokemon and my most agile and balanced Pokemon. His moves include Bounce, Bubble Beam, Scald, Rain Dance, Brick Break, and Ice Beam too. He also has Water Absorb, so he can absorb the enemy's water-type attacks. Krogunk's my strongest attack-wise with moves like Poison Jab, Poison Sting, Brick Break, Sucker Punch, and Astonish, but I don't think he would be too helpful in the water. And Palpitoad's another all-rounder like Politoed, with main moves being Echoed Voice, Supersonic, to confuse enemies, Bubble Beam, Aqua Ring, 4 health, and Mudshot. And your quirk? Serena asked further. My quirk is called Frog. Shui answered. I can do multiple things that amphibian-like Pokemon like my own can do, such as jump really high, and I can stick and climb up almost any wall. Then there's my tongue, I can stick it out for like 20 meters. Oh, and I can also spit out my stomach so I can clean it, but that's not really useful. And I can secrete a toxic mucus that just stings a bit. The only ones that might help here are my jumping and tongue. I figured that you were powerful, but that's amazing, Tsu. Izuku said, a small smirk on his face. Ribbit. Tsu croaked, a tiny blush on her cheeks. You praise her but not me, I see how that is. Serena grumbled silently and jealously. As for my quirk, it's called Aura Force. Izuku lied once more, his frown evident of his dislike. I can channel my aura or my life force safely, giving me my super strength and speed. However, it comes at a price. I can only use at current 5 to 6% safely. Otherwise I will end up straining or breaking my body. It's like a double-edged sword until I can master it. As Azui and Serena nodded, Izuku thought, not really a lie again, but I can't really tell them about One for All or its ability to be passed on to others, or the weird things that have been happening like that weird dream. And your Pokemon are Eevee, Pikachu, and Combusken, right? Shui asked. Why yeah, Izuku quickly answered. Eevee's my oldest partner with basic attacks like Quick Attack, Takedown, and Body Slam for physical offense, Swift for special attack, and Sand Attack to blind enemies. He also has Heal Pulse that can heal both Pokemon and people, so that could help, but it drains him quickly. Combusken is one of my fastest and physically strongest, as you saw in her fight against Todoroki's Darmanitan. Aerial Ace and Flame Charge help with her speed, while Shadow Claw, Brick Break, and Double Kick are her physical offensive moves. And finally Flamethrower is her only special attack, though I don't think she will be much help in the water or water types. And finally there's Pikachu. He's my strongest with his Thunderbolt and Electro Ball unmatched, but he is also really fast with Quick Attack, and strong with Iron Tail. And Volt Tackle is one of his newest moves, though it has a lot of recoil damage to him. Well, that's all our quirks and Pokemon counted for, Serena said. Come up with a plan now. Sure do. Izuku smirked confidently. Alright, listen up. First we dash. Boom. The three were thrown off their feet as the boat rocked and shifted. The three got up as they looked towards the villains to see one of them, with a water-manipulating quirk like Serena's, attack the ship with a claw made out of water. This is taking too long, the villain yelled. I'm starting to get bored. You wouldn't like me when I'm bored, kiddies. Well, that's not good, Shui said. Now the ship is sinking. Izuku found that Azui's assessment was right. The ship, now broken in two, was indeed sinking, the water getting slowly closer as the ship groaned in the ship's metal bending and collapsing. We're sinking fast, Serena said, frowning. We gotta get out of here quickly. So Izuku got a plan. Cause I think you might want to speedrun it for us. No need to worry, Serena, Izuku said, smiling bravely to the two. I always have a plan. With the villains, the one that nearly chomped Izuku said, the boat will be under the water in a minute, and when it fully submerges they won't stand a chance against us. I bet they're crying for their mommies, especially that green-haired twerp I almost chomped. Hey, don't forget that Shigaraki told us to keep our guards up, the water-controlling villain said. We can't judge them by how they look, but by their quirks. They can do anything, says the guy that just cleaved the ship in half because he was getting bored. The villain snarked back. Who made you the boss here? Before the two could start arguing, they were cut off by a yell. They turned to see Izuku yelling his heart out. You want me, you stupid villains? Izuku roared out. Well, here I am. Izuku jumped back, his body sparking in green lightning. One for all. Full cowling, 6%. Izuku ran and jumped off of the boat and into the air, gaining a greater leap. Yell and distract them just like Bakugo would yell, he thought before yelling. Now die. Stupid move, kid, the villain said as he formed another claw made of water. Wait, what's with that green lightning on him? One of the villains exclaimed. Is he spewing out electricity? Oh shit! Another villain yelled. Is he going to electrocute us? Not if I have anything to say about it. The Water Claw villain said. Open fire! Izuku brought out his left arm and hand out. His thumb over his index finger. Yell and make a distraction. Izuku mentally told himself. Then attack. I can't go full out and sacrifice my arm. There are other enemies outside the shipwreck zone, and I can't fight them all with full cowling in the water. So I'll attack at a single point full on. Delaware smash! Izuku roared out, flicking his energy-powered fingers. A powerful burst of wind shot into the water, causing the water to explode out and swirl into a makeshift whirlpool, the surprised villains and their Pokemon crying out as they were pulled under the current. Izuku groaned in pain, his glove blown apart, showing his broken thumb and index finger. He gritted his teeth and yelled, Serena! Now! Right! Serena and Azui yelled as Azui, Serena in her arms, jumped out the boat and grabbed onto Izuku with her tongue. Politoed likewise jumped up high with bounce, a pokeball in his hands. It's working! Serena yelled as she looked at the villains getting dragged into the whirlpool Izuku made. What's going on? One of the villains screamed. I'm getting dragged in. Another villain yelled as he tried to swim away, only for him to get slammed into by Tentacool going down the current as well. I might not be able to lift that control all that water all at once. Serena thought as she thrust her hands out. But I can push the current faster. She swiped her hands to the right before bringing them up and swiping right again. Multiple areas of the water suddenly becoming faster and stronger, dragging more of the villains and Pokemon down into the rushing center. Izuku as he watched the villains get dragged and he said, when a strong force is applied to a water's surface, the water will be pushed away, and come rushing right back to the middle. On time, the water exploded outwards with the villains and their Pokemon in rushing upwards. Now Tsu! Izuku yelled. Azui let go of Serena as she fell towards the water. Serena held her hands up and gritted her teeth as above her. The water that exploded outward was now gathered up by Serena into a large bubble of water in midair. Now guys! Serena yelled as two pokeballs strapped to her waist, opened up and shot out white light, one of the forming in midair to reveal Piplup while one shot downwards to the water and formed into Milotic, the tender Pokemon's lashing out its tail and catching Serena, as Piplup landed in the water before coming right back up. Serena gritted her teeth and strained against the massive weight of the water she controlled above her, along with holding the villains in place. I got it, she yelled. Now Politoed! Zhui yelled. Politoed threw the Pokeball in hand, it opening to reveal a devilishly smirking Pikachu. Sup, bitches! He yelled out. Crap! It's a Pikachu! One of the struggling villains in Water Bubble yelled. Pikachu! Thunderbolt! Izuku yelled. Full charge! Pikasus! You! A large bolt of lightning fired out of Pikachu and slammed into the water bubble. All the villains and their Pokemon yelling in pain at the powerful electrocution. Trap the villains above the water so that Pikachu's Thunderbolt can strike them without hurting us. Izuku mentally retold the plan. And then freeze them in place. Serena, Azui, do it. Piplup, Milotic. Serena yelled. Ice Beam. Full power. You too, Politoed. Zhui yelled. PIPP. /OA. /Politoed. The three Pokemon cried out as they all fired three large bolts of icy energy at the electrified bubble. In an instant, the bubble became fully frozen, trapping the surprised villains and their Pokemon frozen in a crystallized ball of ice. Serena immediately let go, slumping onto Milotic, as the ball crashed into the water, slightly pushing the tender Pokemon away with the tide. Serena gasped for breath at the strain she put herself. She turned to her two Pokemon as they swam away. Thanks, gasp guys. She gasped out. Piplup! /Goa. The two cried out in response. Before Pikachu can fall down to the water, he was grabbed once again by the mid-air Politoed by his tongue. The frog Pokemon swung the Pokemon over to Azui and Izuku, the green-haired teen catching his second partner. The frog Pokemon would meanwhile safely land on the water. Nice job, Pikachu. Izuku groaned out. Always aim to please, boss. Pikachu snarked out. All in a day's work for Detective Pikachu. Izuku rolled his eyes and smiled. Looks like everything went according to plan, Azui said as she carried Midoriya and looked down towards Serena on Milotic. You two are amazing. You were amazing too, Tsu. Izuku groaned out, a strained smile on his face. Couldn't have done the plan without your jumping skill and Politoed. Ribbit. Tsu croaked out and blushed again as she jumped away while Serena sailed away on Milotic, Piplup and Politoed beside them, leaving behind a floating ice ball full of frozen villains. I guess we passed the shipwreck zone.